Alright, so let's bring in some titles and let's write something pretty cool. So I'm just going to click on this little T icon for text. I'm going to click on the screen, which I already did, and I can just type out whatever. I'm holding in the control so I can move it around. You know, basic keyboard shortcuts. Let me make it a nice, not fully white. There we go. It's perfect. That's just fine. Alright. So, what should we write? That font actually resembles a lot to this font. Let's put a little dash right there. Maybe not. Whatever. Cool. So, I hope this isn't copyrighted or trademarked. Alright, so next up, we're going to parent this CyberShot to the null object. So down here, you'll see CyberShot null object. And basically this little spiral is the pick whip. So we're going to grab the spiral, and basically we're going to put it on the null. And what that does, you'll notice that now if I move, CyberShot is tracked to the camera. So that's pretty cool. And that's how you track. Thanks for watching. Till then. No, there's a bit more to it. So that's basically the basic track. Now I could have tracked the rotation, the scale, and all that, but I didn't bother just cause. So at this point, I thought about making it go basically go from behind the camera and go up like that, and I thought that could look pretty cool. So actually, before I do that, let me do a little something so it blends a bit better with the scene. What you want to do is you want to go on the text layer or whatever layer you're using, click on the motion blur, and then enable motion blur. And you'll notice now it's a bit blurry. So off, it's really crisp. With, it's a bit blurry. Now it's a bit blurry because it was moving. And you'll notice now when it's moving, actually let me find a spot where it's moving a bit more. Yeah, you'll notice now there's motion blur on it. And that just blends it a lot better. So let me go in half. Alright, let me render this out so that you guys can see what that looks like so far. Alright, so there you go. So you'll notice now it's blended with the scene pretty nicely. So there we go. I'm spending a lot of time on this one, so I guess I'll just skip through the other ones. So basically I won't show again how to track, and I won't go as in depth with everything else. Okay, so I wanted the CyberShot to jump from behind the camera, so I guess it'll do that, and then right around here it'll jump from behind the camera. So I'm just gonna enable the position so I can animate it, and I'm gonna move it down. Now I showed how to animate stuff in the previous tutorial, so I'm not gonna go over it again. And I'm actually going to edit the rotation. Now remember in the last tutorial in the transform tab there was all these things. Well, if you press the keyboard shortcuts such as R for rotation, S for scale, T for opacity, P for position, you can bring them up just like that. So if you see these change and I haven't clicked anything, just know I'm pressing the keyboard shortcut. Alright, so there you go. So I'm actually going to invert these because I want it to start from behind. There you go. Awesome. And I'm actually going to make these easy ease. Going to go in the curve editor, and I'm going to edit their curves. That should look just fine. Cool. So I want to say we have a bit of a problem, but it's not really a problem. All we got to do now is mask it. Oh, and right, I was going to rotate it a bit so that it worked a bit better. So I'm going to pull up the rotation. Oh, that's not what I want to do. I'm going to click on the text, press R, and then rotate it just a little bit. I guess it's fine. I guess it's fine. You know what? It's fine. It's fine. It works just fine. Whatever. Actually, let me check something. I just pressed Control R to bring up the rulers. Is that straight? That's not straight. I don't get it. Let me press W. Let me see if I can rotate it by hand. There we go. That looks a lot better. Alright, so masking. Now, because the text has motion blur on it, that is not how the actual footage is, meaning that the footage looks like this. If I mask it, I'm actually not masking the blur. So, see what I mean? I can do that. Now notice I can still see the text, but notice that when I turn off the motion blur, see, I can see it past the mask. So when I turn it off, there's no text over here. So that could be a problem, because I want it to look like it's coming from behind, and if some motion blur is peeking through the mask, that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to duplicate the footage and mask the footage instead, so it's like a layer on top of the footage. So I'm going to go onto my footage over here, just the base footage. I'm going to press Control D, or I can right click and press duplicate somewhere. But I think remembering Control D is easier. So I'm going to put this over my text because I want it to be hiding my text. And then I'm actually going to click the eye. Alright, I'm going to go over here, and then I'm going to mask the footage. So make sure that you have this selected, this camera footage. So I'm going to mask right there. Alright, so that should solve that problem. Let's see if it did. Actually, before I do anything, let me animate the mask. So, animate the mask. So let's click on here. Actually, if I click on M, it brings up the mask path. So I can just enable that. And then holding on Control, pressing the right arrow key, I go to the next frame. So I can just double click on that, move it over till it matches. And usually I would move all the dots one by one if it was like a hand I was doing this to. But because it's a fixed shape, I don't need to. Good. I'm going to press Control Shift H to get all these things away so I can see through it. Now this doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to happen so fast people won't even notice. Alright, so that looks good enough. So I'm going to go before this animation and press Alt left bracket, and I'm going to go after the animation and press Alt right bracket. So now you see that this just trimmed the video. I could have also just grabbed the edges like that, but it takes a bit more time, so I'm not going to bother. Alright, so now we have Cybershot coming from behind. Now, because Cybershot does not show until then, I'm going to hold Alt and press left bracket. And that should fix that. So, let me go in half. Alright, so let's see how that looks. Good. Let me see how that looks. Awesome. Now let's turn on the motion blur. Now remember I said that obviously the mask would end there if I masked off the title, but because I duplicated the footage and made this, the motion blur won't actually peek through. So let's enable that, and now you notice that it's behind. Cool. And actually I'm going to go on the mask and I'm going to feather it out just a tiny bit. So mask feather, enable that. Actually I don't need to have it animated. Just feather it out just a tiny bit, like 2 pixels. That's fine. Good. So now, there we go. Look at that. Looking fancy. So that's the finished product. I know this video is really long right now, so I'm gonna do one more, which is the paper track, and I'm gonna skip through a lot of stuff. I found this love letter, it looks like, on the internet, and I'm just going to track it onto that piece of paper. Cool. So drag that in. Lovely. It's fantastic. Okay, so before we do anything, I want this to be pure white because we'll be using a blend mode. So let me just make a, that's not what I want. Just make a solid, Let me just make this pure white solid so I can compare it to the paper. There we go. Yeah, so this is not pure white. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab a curves and put it onto the letter. Okay, so basically what I did just now, I went into the effects and presets, typed in the effect I want, grabbed the effect, and dragged it onto the layer I wanted. And that's how you basically apply effects to footage. You could also right click and do color correction and then curves, which is down here. But that's much quicker. So basically I'm just going to go ahead and lift this until it blends in. So that's fully blended. Excellent. The reason I used this, the reason I did this basically is so that I can use the blend mode multiply. Multiply will remove all white, and this is perfect because it makes it so that it matches perfectly. Alright, so now that we got our image, all we gotta do, I can delete this, all we gotta do is click on our footage that we want to track, do track motion, and then we should probably have, yeah, full is good. Next, down here in the menu, you want to do, yeah, it's good. Track motion, transform, you want to go with perspective corner pin. That's going to give you 4 trackers. Now do not mix these up. So if this is in this corner, put it in that corner. Don't put it wherever you want because it will twist around your image and it's not going to be good. So let's go right ahead and do it. So let me just do that. Alright, so I'm actually going to make this one a lot bigger because it's very faded and it might jump around. So there we go, that should be big enough. These are big enough. Alright, so now we just cross our fingers and hope. So actually, as I said earlier, go down here, press analyze forwards. I'm doing 1 frame at a time, see how it goes. Alright, it looks like it's going to be good. Good, so you'll notice that it's taking a lot more time because it's analyzing 4 dots at once. So yeah, so I'm just going to pause. Also, when you press the spacebar, it'll pause, and that way if it messes up, you can easily press Ctrl Z and it's not going to delete the whole thing. So I finalize this and I'm like, oh no, it messed up. I pause it. If I press Ctrl Z, that last portion I did is going to delete. So I'm just going to skip through this and be back when it's done. Alright, so we're done tracking. I stopped at 6 seconds instead of 8, actually 7 instead of 8 because that's long enough. And this is a tutorial, so whatever. Next up, I'm going to do edit target. I want the letter, and then you press, basically, you just press apply. Press apply, and now the letter is stuck on there. Cool, so I do not believe that you can scale this up. A second. Oh yeah, you can. Okay, cool. So I actually did this on purpose. The shadow, it was to show you the blend mode. So there you go. If I do multiply, look at that. Isn't that lovely? Cool. And now we have basically a letter that is tracked onto a piece of paper. All right. Last thing before we end off, I know we didn't cover the last clip, but I guess you could, with the last clip, track some text onto the fence and try to mask that off. So there we go, that's a challenge. That'll be in the description. Actually, all these are challenges, so please go ahead and try these out, see what you came up with. With this one, I actually got a bit fancy and added a shadow to the cyber shot. So you'll notice up here, there's a shadow. And there you go. So last thing I want to say, forget what I said about the motion blur. You can actually enable motion blur for this, and it'll work just fine. Alright, so thank you for watching. Before I leave, let's do this very important thing that you should always do after you're done using After Effects. Windows R to bring up Run. Okay, and then type in %temp%. Press OK. Select your whole temp folder. Shift delete. Press OK. And see, I just deleted 5 gigs. Now, if I didn't delete this right after I was done using After Effects, 5 gigs of junk would have stayed on my computer and just cluttered it. So there you go. Once you're done using After Effects, always delete your temp folder. And that's how you do it. Thank you for watching. Sorry this video is long. I will try my best to make them shorter next time, I swear. But as always, thanks for watching. Until then, see you in the next video.